Good morning, everybody. It's Monday, start of a new week. Turn my music down a little bit. So I'm still working away on my raccoon and I got a lot done. But before I show you all that today, I wanted to show you some things that answer some questions that have been asked, but also kind of show you what's inspiring me as well to kind of get back into sculpture on an ongoing basis. And so first I'm going to put this glove on and I'm going to show you a bronze version of a sea turtle. If I can bring it up close and bring some light over it, maybe you can see. This is just a solid patina, the typical brown patina without any color. And this is ready for me. You can see the detail in this sea turtle. This is not a molded sea turtle. This is a sculpted sea turtle. You can see the detail in that. Whoops, let's get the light on it. Here is another one. Let me get my other glove on. The reason I have to have my gloves on is they haven't been sealed. We're going to talk about sealing things for painting. Hi, Mark. Good morning. Hi, Cindy. Hi, Cindy. Now, here's an interesting, they went ding when I put them together. Let me bring this light over a little better so you can really see this in the light. Okay, I'm holding them with gloves because they're not yet sealed. And you might be able to see, whoops, there you go. One is substantially bigger than the other. Okay, now I'm going to show you what ended up happening with that. And it's heavy. This is a bronze piece that is awaiting my coloring of it with those beautiful bronze colors that I showed you in a video earlier. And in it we have, let's see if I can get it really where you can see the detail. There's little anemones, there's a little crab. There's a little crab, you can see that. All kinds of detail, here's a little clownfish, and you know they're colorful. So this is awaiting, that's why I'm holding it with gloves. It's not sealed, it's been packaged up all this time, awaiting coloring. So how did we arrive at that in bronze? Well, this is broken, but I'm going to show you this. This is the first thing we did was porcelain. We did sea turtles, and it's missing some legs and pieces on this broken one. But I did the china painting on that. Chuck did the sculpture on it, and you can see the detail. It's not a molded turtle. This is sculpted from scratch. Very detailed. And let's see the shell. And the painting, it looks like, oh, just throw paint on it, right? It took several layers to get this kind of soft look. You can sort of see the face there. It wasn't easy to paint, but we produced a few of those and sold a few of those. Everyone actually, that's why I don't have any. I think I sold them all. I can't find any. But what we did was, I'm going to talk about going from clay to plaster to then molding the plaster. And if you wanted to go to porcelain, this is what you can do. I know I need to do some extensive workshops on that next year so I can show you. See how this is much smaller than this, and this is much smaller than that? What happened, and this is a valuable thing that porcelain can do. Yeah, and there's a lot of detail. The thing about porcelain is you can shrink down your original, and then you can mold it again and shrink it down again. And I have actually got a lot of examples of that. And you don't have to make that fancy a mold if you're just trying to shrink like heads and parts. And let me see if I can find the original to show you how big I think this is right here. Okay, the original, here's just the shell, but let's show you how it went from there to there to there, just by a process of shrinking down successively in porcelain, recasting, you know, pouring it again in porcelain, taking it out and firing it again, you get about a 16% shrinkage every single time. And just to give you an idea of fittings, this is a porcelain piece that was fired in separate parts just to preserve the parts in case we wanted to mold them again. This was all the strategy that was developing over time, trying to get the most out of the work of the incredible detail that went into one work. So, whole family of turtles, right? So I don't know if you can see this, but I'm going to try to show it. So you have, whoops, see the lock and key? You sculpt that into the piece because those are the separate mold parts. And then in the porcelain, when it comes out of the mold, it's like ceramic greenware, if you know what that is. It's just this kind of wet clay that forms the shape of that. And before it dries, you very carefully, because it's real breakable, put a little bit of what they call porcelain slip, which is just liquid clay, really. And you put that together and you take the seam lines off and it dries intact like that or that. And then once it dries, you put it in the kiln, you put propping material around it, and you fire it. And bingo, we ended up finally with the work started on something that large in clay, molded in plaster, then cast in porcelain, shrunk down, and you get something that went from this size to finally having a model that was cast for bronze. So we have this little model that goes with the big sea turtle group right here. And this one is like a separate piece on the ground. And then we had the bigger single piece that somebody might just want to have a bronze sea turtle. I'll show you the underside of this. The detail was preserved because each successive cast, we'd do another plaster model and carve out the detail before it was in the final cast. Now, what we did was send a plaster model to the foundry that did the bronze for us. And so what they do is they produce a wax. I mean, it's crazy. They mold it again, and then they produce a wax model that gets this shell around it. And then they heat the shell, and the wax drains out. Now you have that shell, and that shell goes in the furnace, and they pour the liquid bronze into that shell, which burns off. So, I mean, not burns off, I'm sorry. They pour it into the shell. When the bronze comes out, they have to crack that shell off. And then there's the bronze, and then people clean it up at the end. It's a lot of work. It's very expensive. But that was one of the pieces. And again, to show you, this was one of the pieces that we had done in bronze. And you can see the height of it compared to the raccoon. I wish I had better lighting in here to show you this piece. There we go. That really shows it. So if I want to put those coloring oxides, the ones that you heat the metal, this is heavy. You heat the metal and you apply it with a special brush that doesn't get hurt in the heat, which you can get from Sculpture Depot, and it's the Art Nouveau stains, then I can fire on those colors that I want and create a very colorful piece with our bronze, but it's got the integrity of patinas. It's not just painted on top of bronze. It becomes part of the metal, which is really exciting to me and something I'm biting at the bit to do, but I've got to wait until I get through my schooling. Then I can go crazy in my studio, and I'm going to take you with me on my live streams while we do all that. This is a silicone rubber mold of just one of the turtle heads. Oh, I don't need my gloves now. I can just take my gloves off. As long as I don't handle the unsealed turtles with my bare hands, because the oils of your hand will get into it. When I finish with the colors on the bronze turtles, then I will do a final sealing, and then I can handle it just fine. Okay, so this is we're going to use rubber silicone mold material to make our molds. We're not going to use, I don't want to use epoxy. And oh, this was another turtle head. This was the one I showed you the other day. but that whole head could get, what you do is you have something round that holds your, you put it into place, and then you pour you pour the rubber material around your object you're trying to mold. And because it's rubber, it can, it can pull apart so that you can get undercuts with rubber. You can't do undercuts with plaster mold making at all. So Mark was asking about sealing plaster to paint, because I'm going to start out modestly with plaster, and we'll do some finished plasters. And absolutely, you have to seal it. And I will have to bring out some of the materials that are for sealing the plaster, but simple, uh, just, I'm trying to think of what kind of urethane I have, something along that line that would seal it. And then the painting of the plaster I like to do with alkyd oil paints, but using oil paint mediums that help extend the alkyds. That way it dries pretty quickly, but you can blend it. So hi, Al. So we're going to have a whole lot of adventures in sculpture. This right here was a base. This is another part of the sea turtle adventure that was a base, and you can see it's pretty crude. It was just made in plaster roughly, and it held the different sea turtles like they're in the sand. And then we had, I believe somewhere we had them coming out of shells like they were hatching. So the sea turtle theme got crazy, but that's the thing. You can make one very detailed model, and then you can reproduce it and create all kinds of scenarios with your originals. And they're your originals, so it's up to you. They're modular, and you create, I mean, this is truly a sculpture. It's one thing to make a model. A model is arguably not a sculpture, but this is a sculpture. Clearly, that's a sculpture. And the great thing about bronze, look at and it has a lot of strength. Look at how you can see the turtle is sort of, let's get it straight. He's swimming and he's free, and he's only attached by a little area. And so you have the strength of, ouch, it's heavy, the strength of metal um, acting as a kind of a support that gives you possibilities and options in sculpture that you have to be careful of if something's delicate. So, and I just want to add, if we're just doing plaster, we can always embed armature into plaster. So it's still going to be crushable and breakable compared to bronze, but you're not going to spend thousands of dollars, which it costs to do the bronze. So I've kind of made a mess of my table here, and I did want to just touch base. I've been working on the back of the head on this piece. It's still very scratchy looking, and I can't really show it close yet, but I'm going to have that all done by the time you next see it, and then get those corn stalks done. The other thing I wanted to mention real quick before I go is, okay, so I have this piece of corn. The ends aren't really done on it yet. You guys saw I had sort of detailed out a little piece of corn. Now, in my previous life, instead of making these other pieces of corn, we would have molded this first one, get the detail done, and then cast these other modular little pieces and maybe modify them a little bit in the plaster, cast them in plaster. So again, what we would do is you would take your model, say this is clay, this piece, pretend this is clay, and put this inside like a Dixie cup or something, and then just pour that liquid rubber around it. Wait till the rubber uh, gets hard, which is not too long a day. Take out your clay model, and now you have that little area, and you just pour liquid plaster into that. That hardens up pretty quickly. Within 30 minutes, you have it out. And then now this is sealed. Mark, you wanted to ask, this could be painted, but this is sealed for another reason. This is plaster. It's sealed, or is this plaster? That might be resin. Okay, I'm sorry, this is resin, but if this were plaster, you would just seal it so that you would preserve it and not. And the other thing about plaster, and here's another trick, you can dust it with malachite, and I'll get those instructions so you could download that. while it's curing, and that way the malachite, which is a type of ceramic material, stays on the outside of the plaster because sometimes salts come up from the plaster and ruin the surface of your sculpture. And so the malachite draws the salts up to its layer, and then you dust that off, just take it outside and, with a mask, and break it off. Yes. Um, Malachite, green copper thing. It's a ceramic material that uh, I think I'm saying the right material. I'll just check it to make sure. But I used to use it in the far past, so I hope I'm saying the right thing. I'll check that. But what you do is put this ceramic material around a plaster that you've just cast and let it cure. And that way, when you dust off that ceramic material, the plaster is very pristine and ready to work with tools, which I have a ton of tools for plaster reworking. And so you won't have the hard areas. Sometimes, like plaster, your model will have like a hard area that is part of your detail and you can barely break into it, or you'll kind of crack through that and then hit a soft part. And so there are ways to avoid having these little technical problems um, that without, somebody having done this before you, it's really hard to find places to learn all this. That's what I experienced. I'm going to take this off just to show you real quickly. One more point and then I have to go. But this is plaster. This is definitely plaster. And see how it has all different colors, and you can see uh, we used to use lacquer to seal it, just to preserve it back in the day. And there's a dried up lacquer I can see all over this, but it kept the salts from coming out in a lot of cases. So there's lots of things that we did in the past that we would do a little differently now, but it's the same principle, which is you're trying to create plaster models and then mold them again to create reproductions, or take your plaster model to the foundry and whoops, have a beautiful bronze piece uh, made from your plaster mod. Of course, you can go right from clay too. A lot of people don't worry about the detail level the same way, but that's important to me. So, um, and I'm spoiled, spoiled by plaster models. So anyway, thank you guys for coming on again today. And Mark, I'll answer that. I didn't have time over the weekend, but I'll answer the question about sealing plaster and the material that I recommend, so that you can paint it. And anyway, so I hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you on Wednesday morning. You're all inspiring me to keep going no matter what. So lots of things on our plate to do. Talk to you soon. Put questions that you can think of in the comments. I really appreciate that. Bye.